Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And with me today, a very, very, I'm going to say special and honored. I'm honored to have Dr. Roger Parrott with us today. He's a university president. He's into so many cool things. He's a homeschooling family, but also he leads the Belhaven University. And now I'm going to say this again because you told me, but Jackson, Mississippi, is that correct? That's where you guys are, right? Okay, awesome. There's about 4,000 students there. They have on-campus, online students that are there as well. They have graduate programs, a doctoral program, and this is super cool because in 2021, Belhaven was named the best university to work for. And, you know, when you're looking at the university world, that has to be a very, very, very big distinction, because to be known as a university where people want to come to work, I love that. So this is really great. So also, Roger was recognized as one of the top 10 most visionary education leaders of 2021 by Education Magazine. So he is top notch. And obviously, if people want to come and work with him, he must be something special, which he is. Not only that, for the last 25 years, Roger has served in board leadership. And so he's had a role with the Lausanne movement and the Mission America Coalition. He was the chairman of the 2004 Forum for World Evangelism. So, you know, his board service has given him extensive international experience around the world. I think he told me that did you say you have about 75 ministries that work with you? Or there was a 500 and there was 75, Roger? You'll have to clarify that for me.
Yeah, it's the Mission America Coalition is about 35 denominations and about 750 service ministries who work together for evangelism.
Wow. That's amazing. So, you know, so we're going to get to hear all about that, right? And we're also going to chat a lot today about Dr. Parrott's new book. He's got a book called Opportunity Leadership. And I love the tagline. It's stop planning and start getting results. It's like, yes, I love that. So, you know, if you think about the idea of, and we hear this often, you know, there's like plan your work and work your plan, right? So here, we're actually going to let all that go because we're going to rediscover what that looks like, because this is a super counterintuitive book, you might say, where it turns leadership kind of upside down on its head, and so that you can discover the unexpected opportunities. So, and Dr. Parrott is also a national speaker. So if you want him to come to your area, we're going to give you the links to that in the show notes. You'll be able to come and have him come visit you as well. And you want to find out more about Belhaven University, you can do that too. Belhaven University. Heaven or Haven? Am I saying? Belhaven. Okay, good. All right. Sounds like heaven to me if people want to come work there, right?
It's a wonderful place. It's a haven. It's a separation in a good way, but really engaging students to prepare for the world.
Well, that is just super cool. So first of all, thank you for being here. Thanks for making your day work. You know, take time out of your busy schedule. Anything I left out in introducing you?
Oh, that's too much introduction. I am honored to be with you because as a university president, I love what you do. First of all, you're committed to homeschoolers. I am so strongly believe in homeschoolers. I was one and love it. And we have a ton of them on our campus, homeschool students. But I also love that you're really focused on teaching a math and a competency base. You're my hero. That's what I want to do. It is hard to do. There aren't many good places to find good curriculum for that. And I love it. I just think that, especially for math, competency based is so important. So maybe we can talk a little about competence. Don't get me going too long. We'll spend the whole time on competency based.
All right, bro, that's great. I'm always happy to talk about math and what we do and how we do it. But I think most of our listeners know me, but they want to get to know you. So, you know, you had a chance to homeschool your family. So for you, when you were entering this, and how did it happen? Like, how did you discover homeschooling for you and your family?
Yeah, it was the right fit for us. It was not a philosophical choice. It was not we're afraid of the big bad public schools. I'm a great believer in public schools for a lot of people, and that's the best option for them. But for my kids, it just fit. And they were, I think my son was in first grade or second grade and my daughter one behind. And they just kind of said, you know, we're tapping out. We're coming home. And it was like, okay, that works. And it was great, you know, because I think when students are homeschooled, they just get a depth of education and preparation you can't get in a regular school. Because a lot of the challenge, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here with your audience, but a lot of the issue to me of regular school is they take all the creativity out of students. That's job one, because they've got to get everybody to obey, to line up, to do all the thing. And so you take a 6-hour school day or whatever it is, and you're packing about 2 hours of learning into that, and the rest of it's just process. And so, we just stripped all that away. We relaxed with it, and it could not have been better for my kids right at a doctoral level. It's remarkable, their ability to articulate. Now, my wife has a PhD in English, so it does help.
Right, that's useful.
She did all the work. I just pray.
Yeah, sometimes even for me, there was so much unlearning that had to happen. And I talk to homeschool families all the time, and moms that are home and doing it, and they had a teaching background, and they had to unlearn a lot of the things that they used to do in their school setting to be able to homeschool, because they had so much more freedom, and it took something to get there.
Yeah,
so that's great.
It's not necessarily sit in the chair for 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. And there's an opportunity for curiosity. There's an opportunity for learning to I always told my wife she'd buy the curriculum and she'd feel guilty she didn't use it all. Now, I believe in the curriculum. We use some of it, and you've got great curriculum, so I highly recommend it. But she'd feel badly she didn't get through it. I said, don't worry about it. Help them to learn to articulate. Help them to learn to express ideas, how to write, and learn vocabulary. Vocabulary is one of the biggest determinators of academic success. And learn those things. And if they learn that, we'll eventually learn the state capitals, or they can look them up, which they do. They look them up a lot faster than we could ever learn them. So
right.
A lot of the things that parents grew up with, we think if we're going to homeschool, we got to make our kids do the same thing. Not necessarily. They're just a lot of joy in letting a child find their interests and really go with it.
Oh, I love that. You said something, and I'm gonna have to tell one on myself, because I never thought about this before when you talked about vocabulary and trying to remember the state capitals, right? But I often think it's like, when I think about words in my own vocabulary, I don't have to go back and try to remember what the words mean. I have that, and it stays with me, and it gets into that long-term memory. Sometimes math equations, you do have to go and look, you have to go back and look those kinds of things up. So yeah. I think that's really great. And, even on our math program, we really focus on language, because oftentimes we find kids, they can do the math. They just don't know what the words mean. And if they knew what the words meant, they could do the math. So that's, that's awesome. So do you notice that, do you ever see, like, if you notice incoming freshmen into at the college level, and you see that they've got homeschooling experience, do you kind of chuckle and get a little smile on your face? You're like, oh, we got another one coming, right?
Yeah, you can tell them. They'll come up to you, they'll look you in the eye, they'll talk to you, they interchange with you, and they're prepared. They're ahead of everybody else. We love the homeschoolers on our campus. Probably half of our faculty have homeschooled. So, it's a very homeschool, which is very different. When I first started, I've been a university president 28 years. And I remember early on trying to get the faculty to accept the homeschooler, and it was a dogfight. Absolute dogfight. Now those days are pretty much over. The homeschoolers on our campus, we just love them, and we build our faculty know how to respond to them, to help push them beyond what mom and dad can do, and that's usually the biggest place where they're stuck. And as you know, that often comes out in math.
Absolutely.
and math is where they tend to get stuck. And that's why I really like your competency-based curriculum for math.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's been for me. It turned out I was good at math, right? And for me, it's funny, because for me, I'm a teacher, but it just turned out that I was good at teaching math, and so it was like a great fit. That's awesome. All right, so let's look at your book, because we hear this phrase out in the world, plan your work your plan. And sometimes I hear people when they talk about that, and it's kind of like, I hear the words, but I don't see the actions to follow up with it. So when you say in your book, really, you just focus on work your plan, because we get stuck in that space called plan your work. So how do you get people to move from plan your work to actually to the place where they're working their plan?
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to give up on long-range planning. That's in the book. What I'm talking about is long-range planning, whether that be a business or whether that be a church or a ministry or whether that be a family. I mean, I work with a lot of families who have a long-range plan for their kids, and let it go a little bit because when we let go of our long-range plan, it's amazing the opportunities who will come into our life. God will open up doors. Our gifts will really bloom and opportunities will grow up around that. But when we get so focused on a plan, we miss those opportunities. We don't even see them. And so that's what I encourage. And I gave up planning 20 years ago on our campus. There's no long range plan for Belhaven University. If you come to our website, it doesn't exist. And instead, what we do is we use a model, and you're on the islands there, so you understand this a little bit. We use the model. We want to be a sailboat prepared to catch the wind and go wherever God winds goes, instead of a powerboat that goes where we think God wants us to go and ignores the wind. And I think whether it's a business, a university, a school, a family, we can get so focused on our destination of what we think is the right destination, we miss all the good things in the process. So that's what the book is really calling people to do. And it gets into very specifics of 6 kind of traits of leaders who can do that, and then 6 tendencies of organizations who can implement that. And it's been really fun because so much reaction to the book is, wow, this is off the charts different. I've never seen anything like this before. And it's not. There is nothing else like it, but it works. And I prove in a book that it does work. And it really is freeing as a leader to not be dependent on a long-range plan. But back to your question, yes, work the plan that you have, which is your operational plan. That means you do well what you know you've already been given, what you have responsibility to be given. If you're a homeschooler, that's to teach your kids right now. Don't worry about if they're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or what they're going to do. Just teach them right now. Get the best out of what you have right now, and then trust God for what that future may be with opportunities. And so the book really outlines how to do that, and it's really been fun to kind of get it out there in the marketplace.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm talking to our multitaskers right now because I know they're out there.
Yeah.
And so while we're talking, they're also going to be clicking and looking for the book. So it's opportunityleadership.com, and that's how they can find it.
Opportunityleadership.com is the website, and the book, Amazon's easy to find, and it shows up. But yeah, and I've got another book on leadership. In fact, if they want to come to my website, that book just went out of print, and I'm thankful it did, because now I can give it away. And it's got good stuff on administration and leadership, and it's called the Longview. It's about kind of leadership outlook for younger leaders, and so it's available too, and I'd be happy to share it with anybody who wants it.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, people are going to find you. I can tell you, I already know that's coming, which is great.
I'm not hard to find. Google me and I show up.
To be able to be with a university president, for me, in today's world, when I grew up, it was like my parents. I always asked my parents, well, "What do you want me to do?" And kind of like looking at my own future, right? And they had one response, and that was, "You're going to college," right? It didn't matter what I was going to do, but I was going to college, right? And so knowing that you've been with a college for 28 years, you're the president of a college, right? People that when they're starting to look, because a lot of young people today, it's a different world than when I grew up. And, so when they're looking to really plan for college, or they're considering going to college, what are the top reasons that you would say for young people to consider if they're going to go that college track? What should they be looking for when they're thinking about going to college? Kind of like, because it may or may not be the right thing for them, but if it is the right thing, what should they have their eye on?
Yeah, there's so many choices. There's 3,500 universities in the country, a lot of choices, ways to go. I'm really concerned about the direction of higher education. Higher education in the public sector, to me, often comes down to they are focused on size, sizzle, sports, and status. And those 4 S's, and that is what drives them. That's what motivates them. That's what they put their money in, all those kinds of things. Belhaven University is very different. We're about character, curriculum, caring, and Christ. those four C's. And so I think it's important for families to find a school that fits for you. Don't go after prestige. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't go after prestige. Prestige is not going to get you that great job, not going to get you that much farther ahead if you don't do well. So you need to be in a place where some people want a big place, some people want a smaller place, some people want a Christian school, some don't want that. Be in a place that fits for you and reflects your style of learning. And talk to the faculty, talk to not just the admissions people, but get on the campus, talk to students, see what they care about. It's kind of amazing the difference in schools when you start to look around a little bit. Why to go? I think there's a lot of political, kind of soundbite stuff about how bad college is. That's really not reality. They can soundbite off a little obscure thing here or there, but that's not really the reality of where the whole thing is. But I think so many people think, well, I got to go to college so I can get a good job and get a good job so I can make money so I can send my kids to college so they can get a good job so they can make money, send my kids to college. And there's got to be more to it than that. And so what experience would it helps you to bloom as a student and really become your very best of how God designed you to be with your gifts and your talents and those kinds of things. And probably the best illustration I can give is, my daughter was a musical theater major at Belhaven. She had a great experience. She loved it. And I've told her many times, if you don't set foot on a stage the rest of your life, that's okay. Because by studying musical theater, you learned how to be confident in yourself. You learned how to stand up and articulate. You learned how to compromise. You learned how to work in a group. You learned how to take a project and get it done from start to finish. You learned how details were important, how big picture is important. You learned the big concepts of how to be a successful person and a fruitful person who can make a difference in the world. And so that's what college should be, more than just skills. If you're just going for skills, yeah, now if you're going to be an accountant, you got to go to college and you got to learn that. But if you're just going for a skill, I think that's pretty much a limited scope of what college could be. Go for the kind of education that matures you and puts down the roots that allows you to do a lot of different things in life.
Oh my God. You saying that makes me want to go back to school. I'm like,
come to Belhaven. Hey, we got a great thing in Belhaven. Nobody else in the country does. We did this a few years ago, and that's it. We allow our students, we encourage them to do a double major. And if that double major pushes them into their fifth year, because sometimes it takes longer to do 2 degrees, they come tuition free their fifth year. And it really is a great opportunity. So we've got students, I got a dance students who double majored in biology. I've got, of course, communications, double majoring in professional sales. Lots of different combinations. They can do any combination they want. And then when the pandemic hit, we did something that nobody else has done. I just worried about students looking down, being discouraged about their future, et cetera. And we decided to give all of our traditional students who come and for the campus, not the online program, but the campus program, if they stay and graduate, we'll give them a free master's degree. And
wow.
And every one of our students gets a free master's degree, and they're all online, so they can take them wherever they want. They don't have to be in Jackson, Mississippi. And we let them take it whenever they want. So they can take it right after they graduate. They can take it 10 years later. And I had a student the other day, he's going into medical school. And I said, well, when you're done with that, come get your MBA. And because doctors usually aren't very good at managing a lot of things. And so he's going to do that. So it's really been a fun thing. So, I just think education has got to be broader. It's got to be more aggressive, and it's got to prepare students for a much more complex world than we used to do. We used to say, I'm going to go major in this. I'm going to do X job. It doesn't work that way anymore. You're going to do a lot of different things in your life, and you need that broad education.
Absolutely. Oh, that's, when I went to school, I was a business major. That was my undergrad degree. And, and then I got out and got in the business world, and I really disliked it, and found out it's like, no, teaching's my passion, being around young people. That's what I'm really, that's my thing. And so then it was like, well, how do I reorient myself and get back? So I was back in school to get some classes to get into the education world. But you're so right. It's like there is those skills, and there's some things I got out of business school, right? Because obviously doing what I do get to run a business, but I'm an educator at heart, and that's so it's so true, so true. All right, you mentioned a couple of things, so I want to kind of hone in on this too, because I think hearing it from you will really make a difference for people. Because what an opportunity to be able to, if you got a double major, that 5th year is free. You're right. I love that, and the pandemic, being able to come back and get that master's degree. But when you look, and I think one of the things that discourages people today is that they hear the cost of going to college, and that it keeps going up, and student loans, and and there's a lot of conversation, and sometimes I think the same as you said, like politicized about what's real and not real. So when you look at going to college, what would you say are kind of like, there's the real cost of going to college, and then those hidden costs? How would you distinguish what those are for people?
Such a good question, because for most families, they make this decision 1, 2, maybe 3 times, and so they don't even understand the issues of the cost of education to make a good choice. And so they look at the sticker price and they go, well, this school's cheaper than this one, I'm going to go there, or well, you can't consider that school because we can't afford it, or whatever it may be. And it just doesn't work that way at all. In the old days, we used to say it was like buying a car, everybody discounts a little bit. It's totally even different from that now. It is just don't not consider a school because you can't afford it. I'm so serious about this. I wrote a 15-page paper to help people. It's called The Real Cost of College, and Perspectives from a University President. And you get it on our website, and there's a 5-part video series on it as well if you want to watch it instead. But it's so important to me because they don't understand how to measure that up. They don't understand that state universities keep their tuition low, but they nail students with fees, they nail students with housing, they nail students with all kinds of extras of parking, all kinds of things, and those dollars run up. They don't understand that, yeah, I want to go to community college because it's cheaper. Well, you might, but if you're a really bright student, you're going to be in a class with 13 and 15 ACT students. There's not going to be any iron sharpening iron. Is that really going to be? Yeah, you'll get the credits, but is that all you're interested in? Is it credits? You can get credits lots of ways. Credit can't be what drives us. People are afraid of debt. There's good debt and bad debt. I explain all that stuff as well. They're just a lot of questions to ask. And so I did the math for people. In fact, we just updated it recently. If you come and get the paper, it updates it with real numbers of here's the cost. I mean, our tuition's like $27,000 a year. People look at that and go, I can't afford that. Well, yeah, you can. In fact, I show the numbers, how if you come to Belhaven University instead of a state university, it will save about $60,000 out of your life.
Wow.
60. It's that much. And part of the reasons it's that much is if you come and do one major, you're going to graduate in 4 years. At a state university, the average graduation time is 5.5 years right now. So you're going to pay tuition longer. You're going to pay housing longer. You're not going to be in the job market sooner. You're not going to have the employment. Plus, you add in our scholarship, you add in the kinds of things you do. It's not an apples and apples comparison. And families really need to understand these complex issues because it's a big, see, I've got the advantage. I do this all the time. So I know the questions to ask, but most families don't. And that's why we just want to put it out there for them. And if they choose us, great. If they don't choose us, that's fine. We want them to be where God wants them to be.
Something, I mean, just getting to meet you, as we're doing this, right? You're just so transparent. That's so refreshing. I just really acknowledge you for that. I think that's great. So, and you mentioned scholarships. I want to come back to that, but let's start with a student that is applying to your college or really to any college. But for you, when you have students coming to Belhaven, what do you look for in a young person that's applying to college?
I mean, we look for a lot of things. We want to make sure they match with us. They match with the mission. They match with the kind of our style of learning. They match with being in a small campus where you can do a lot of different things. You can be involved in theater, you can be involved in sports, you can be involved in leadership. You can do a lot of different things at one time. Where you go to a bigger school, you can't do that. We're looking for students who are more generalists than all specialists. But I think there's a lot of confusion among families of what it means to get a scholarship. And part of that is they assume that they take the context out of Division I sports. And a scholarship in a Division I sport means you get a full ride, plus your room and board, plus your books, plus living expenses. And that is not what most of the real world deals with. In fact, if you go to a state university, you are paying for their scholarships. That's part of why your cost is what it is, because somebody's got to pay that fee, and the legislature is not paying that. So so for us, we base a scholarship on academic ability, we base a scholarship on financial need, and we base a scholarship on unique performance. So we're the #1 Christian school in the arts. We are nationally accredited in all 4 of the arts: music, theater, visual art, and dance. There's no other Christian college that works at our level in the arts. So yeah, if you come and you are a great dancer or musician or visual artist or theater, whatever, we're going to give you a scholarship for participation in that. But that's not going to be the only thing. We're not just there pay to play kind of thing. We want you to be a well-rounded student. And the same with our sports. We're Division III sports, and our football team's done really well. We're going to win the conference this year. I feel confident of it.
Let's go.
But our students do not get athletic scholarships. So they get the same academic and need-based scholarships. And I love it, because that means if a football player wants to play football, great. Come on, be part of our team. But if you decide one day you don't want to play, your dollars don't change one dime. And if you go to a state university or school where they don't base it on that, you lose your money. And I'm more and more interested in students and what their future is. And they're not just here for 4 years. They're, we want them to be part of us for life. So we're really serious about helping families to be able to afford it. Yeah, it's going to cost some money. Students probably going to have to work, and mom and dad will probably have to give up a little bit for it. But we'll work together. We've always found we can find a way to make it work financially.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. Everything. I'm like, I want to go back to. It just keeps coming back to me. I wandered down that path of a PhD one time, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe that looks in my future. That's a possibility now, right? So
that's great. Yeah, we've got a great EDD. It's a great program. We're putting out a lot of school superintendents and high school principals and that kind of thing. So it's a great program.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so homeschoolers, right? Because oftentimes homeschoolers, when they're applying to college, and I do think this has changed over time, but I still think there's a lot of that labeling that goes with it. When a homeschooler is applying to college, sometimes they have, I know in the state system, and I grew up in the Florida area, and just even in terms of they have something called the Bright Future Scholarship in Florida for students that really excel, but the homeschoolers are held to a different level than people that are not homeschooled as to what they have to do to be able to apply to get that. When students are coming to Belhaven, when you see it's a homeschooler, how do you view those homeschoolers coming in? Is there anything in your admission process that if you see them, they're like, oh man, check mark by this guy, or what do you notice in that from your admission process?
First thing is we're going to give them a hug because we love them. So
that's great.
But yeah, homeschoolers do have an interesting time applying now. It's changed a little in the last 3 or 4 years as more schools have gone test optional, and we are test optional as well. And that's kind of the standard anymore, is to be test optional. The challenge with test optional is that then it's grade point average of high school that tends to guide a lot of the academic scholarships. And so if you don't have the test, and obviously you're homeschooled, you don't have real grades. So, where do you fit? We're used to that. So we're comfortable with that. We figure out how to make it work. I do encourage homeschoolers to take the ACT or SAT because it will give you more of a base. Now, the challenge is homeschoolers are not good test takers because that's not what they've had to do. And so get in the pre-ACT, the pre-SAT, take it. multiple times. You don't have to just take it one time because they're not used to taking tests. And that's one of the bigger challenges. And they're not used to being in a classroom. When my whole kids were homeschooled, when they got ready for college, we were about a year and a half out. And I thought, we got to get them in a classroom so they at least know what to do. And I put them in the community college and for a math class of all things. They started that math class with 35 students. And at the end, they wound up with 6.
Oh.
Two of them were mine.
Wow.
And that's part of the way that community colleges are structured. They don't care if they graduate in a lot of places because their funding is based on how many students enrolled at the beginning, not at the end. And
right.
So, but get your students, if you're homeschooler, get them some experience in a classroom, taking some tests, getting more used to that, because that will be part of college life. We actually do test prep for the SAT and ACT on the math side of things. Perfect. And it's great because we get when the students come in, and it's like you just said, it's like how often that it's the structure of the test that it's just, and it's not that they don't know the material, they're just not used to what it looks like to take a test like that. And that's what we practice. It's like, okay, well, here's the test, this is what it looks like, and this is how to prepare. So that's so great. All right, so I do want to come back to leadership, right? A young person, and they're as they're growing up, and they're just kind of they're learning and they're trying to figure it all out, right? How do you see that a young person can discover for themselves their own unique leadership skills? Because I think that everybody has it in them, but oftentimes we overlook it and we don't see it. But do you see a way, like for a young person, if they were going to start to discover their own unique leadership skills, what would that look like? Maybe some key traits of a leader. What do you see there? Well, we're so serious about that. We do testing for it in their freshman year. And we test them in 2 things. We test them in Strength Finder of Gallup to understand their gifting. And then we do use a test that we call True Motivate that we like to understand what motivates them. Because what we want is our students to really bloom in their gifting. So often students feel like I've got to be something different than I am. No, if God made you that way and you've got those kind of gifts and those kind of interests, and you may feel it's quirky, but there's a reason for all that, and make that work. So how do you build on what you're good at? And some people are extroverted, some are introverted, some are big thinkers, some are detailed, some take a long time to make decisions. Sometimes some people are very fast. Understand your gifts and capitalize on your gifts. And so we're very serious about that, and we begin their freshman year with that kind of understanding, because if you don't understand your gifts, then you're really shooting in the dark for some kind of model of what leadership is. And so a leader can be a lot of different styles, but it's got to be within your gifting, or you're playing a role. You're not really a leader. But when it comes to real leadership, the hardest one to develop is patience. And that just takes practice, and that's hard. My dad was a college president too, and when I started, he said, "Learn to live with ambiguity." And I really didn't know what he meant at the time, and I've learned, you can't nail everything down. But when you're young, you want to nail everything down, and it takes a while to develop some of that. I encourage people who want to be in leadership to think in terms of the big picture. And how do you see how the parts move together? I kind of see it like one of these, remember the toys that kids use when they're, 4 or 5 with all the gears on the board, and then you move one gear and everything moves. And
right.
That's how organizations are. That's even how families are. You move one gear and everything moves. I've got a board member who works in developing resorts, and I asked him one time, he's doing $1 billion resort. I said, how do you know how to design it? He said, we design it for the most dysfunctional person of the family. If we can make them happy, everybody else is happy. So, there's some of that going on in families as well as organizations. So,
right.
Big picture, but really to me and our university mission, it comes down to service. If you want to be in leadership because you want the corner office, you want a big salary, you may get it, you may not. But if you want to serve people, if you want to help people, if you want to make a difference in the world, if you want to have an impact, God will find a way to use you in leadership. And so I always help encourage young people to check your motivations. Why are you really striving for what you're striving for? And then when they find themselves in that, boy, there's a joy and a freedom that's wonderful.
Yeah, I look, right. And for me, it was long after college before I really started to discover, and I don't even know if discover is the right word, but trust my own gifts, and it was like, I was like, okay, I'm being led, I'm being called to do what I do. And I resisted it and fought against it and wasn't going to do it. And I finally surrendered, really. And I was like, okay, use me, this is what I'm here for. Let's go. And the whole world opened up for me out of that. So yeah, so really great. All right, so let's look back, because I love asking this question from people like you. You're successful, you've had a world of experience, and you look back, and if you could give some advice to your younger self as a teenager, when you look back and see yourself growing up, what would you look back now and say to yourself as saying, hey, you might want to think about this, or just advice you might give to your younger self as they're getting ready? Because oftentimes our teens are listening right now, and hearing it from someone who is a university president, an author, a speaker, somebody that is on a mission, and you're true to the mission. I think hearing your advice is going to make a huge difference for our listeners. So.
I don't know. It may not be the advice you want, but that's
advice, perfect.
My advice would be relax and don't sweat the future. I was a late bloomer. I mean, I was a good, solid. I like to say B- during college. My wife says C+, but I was solid as could be. It didn't really catch the learning bug till I really got in graduate school. I was doing it because of the next thing to do. I wanted to play sports, and all that kind of good stuff. And so I worried a lot about, well, what am I going to major in? What am I going to do with it? What am I going to do? I'm going to get a job. I'm going to make a living, all that stuff. And I think if I was starting over again and knew what I knew now, I'd say don't sweat it. It's amazing. And it probably comes back to my opportunity philosophy as well. God will bring the opportunities to our lives. And if you just prepare the best you can with what you have, and then don't try to designate a future. I don't think hardly anybody has lived out the future they envisioned when they were 18 years old. I don't think it's hardly happened for anybody. And the ones who did, maybe they wanted to be a doctor, they wanted to do this or that, and they didn't necessarily like it, but they were stuck in it. The people who have really looked for their passion, like you have, didn't start out that way. They started out a different way, and I think we all did. And again, my dad, my grandfather were college presidents. This is the last thing in the world I ever thought I'd do. But God has a way of getting us where He wants us to be. So I would say to younger people trying to figure it out, just do the best of what you got right now, and it'll come together, and it will surprise you.
Just for people that right now, and they're hearing that, just relax and don't sweat it. I love that, right? But because oftentimes I think we get caught up in the way the world looks, and I think for young people it's harder because there's just so many things out there, and it's competitive, and and trying to find your way in a world that we live in today sometimes can be challenging, and it stresses us out. And it's like, I have to have this all figured out. But what if you could just relax and don't sweat it and just enjoy, right?
Parents can add to it some, because they have this envision for this more perfect life they didn't have, and that comes with it. And so there's a lot of tension there sometimes that doesn't necessarily have to be there, but and moms and dads want their best for their kids, but it's not easy. It's not. I had one mother one day, one of my favorites. She was at orientation for the start of the semester, and she said, well, I tried my best. You give it a shot.
Oh, I love it.
I always tell parents, and I have parents come in, my son, daughter's got this challenge, whatever. I said, just give it a little time. They'll bloom. And it's amazing how some students who people thought, oh, they're never going to make it when they're a sophomore, have just had great lives. And I've got enough perspective on it. I can see it at this point. But for parents, there's a great new book called Generations. It's data based on the uniqueness of Gen Z. And I really encourage at least get it and read the last chapter.
Okay, great. I like that. Go right to the end, right? That's
You don't have
good.
to read the whole thing. Read the last chapter, but the whole book's good.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Dr. Parrott, it's been an honor to spend some time with you, and I know our listeners are going to love this. So it's really, really great. And if it's okay with you, I think, having you come back again and just to keep sharing what you're up to and new things that you're creating and what you've got going on. And we want to share more with people so they know more about the university. They can find their way to you, which is awesome. And again, we're going to link all that up in the show notes. But if you're open to it, we'd love to come back and do this.
That'd be great. No, it'd be a treat for me. I'd love this. This has been great. And you make this fun and so fun to talk about these things that really matter so much to us all. But I think too often we just overanalyze it to a level that we get bungled up and we can't move. And education still should be fun. It still should be discovery. It shouldn't be just dreary, one foot in front of the other stuff.
Right. Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's so awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in today. We're going to be back. We're going to do this again for sure. Yes, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to A+ Parents, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye, everyone.